Most welcome, dear students of class 8. My name is DN Sukla and I am going to explain section 2. The name of the chapter is Battling Boats. Dear student, boat races are a popular event in Kerala, especially during the harvest festival of Onam. When in Kerala, the harvest festival of Onam is celebrated, so there is a popular event of boat racing is held. In this story that is written by Mukta Munjal, there is a boy whose name Kutan, a young boy, and Kutan is eager to participate in the race, but he discovers a dark secret the night before the race. Mean the race was going to start, and before night he discovers a dark secret. Read on to find out what the boy does and what happens during the race. So let's enjoy the story. I am going to explain the story. I hope you will enjoy it. Dear student, the two boys are in the market and they are selling coconut and fish. So let's begin the story. That's the last fish sold. Come on, Sukumaran, let's go, said Kutan. Kutan said to Sukumaran that this is the last fish and that has been sold. Now come on. And after saying this, picking up his half empty basket, he said Sukumaran to come on and announce that's the last fish and that has been sold. And saying this, he started to picking up his half empty basket. But there are a dozen coconuts left, protested Sukumaran. But Sukumaran resisted him and said that there were a dozen coconuts left to sell. Then I don't care, replied Kutan. Kutan replied that he don't care about the rest of the coconuts. Today I won't sit here till the last coconut is sold. I am too excited. What he replied? That today he will not sit to sell all the coconuts. He was in hurry. He was excited. So what happened? We are going to read it. Sukumaran looked at his friend a little enviously. Mean to say, Sukumaran looked toward his friend in a little jealous. How lucky you are to be rowing in the boat race tomorrow. Imagine you will be famous, the youngest. So these are the point behind his jealousy, that how lucky you are. Mean to say, how lucky Kutan was that he was going to participate in the boat race tomorrow and he will win. Imagine, when he will win, he will become famous, the youngest famous rower. Kutan was already stepping into his dugout canoe. Dugout canoe, that is a type of small narrow boat made by cutting out the inside of a tree trunk, which was strung together with the coir rope. That boat was bind together with coir ropes. The two boys paddled away from the marketplace. The two boys both are paddled away from the marketplace where they were selling their articles, fish and coconuts. And here where the fisher woman in gaily colored saris balanced fish basket on their heads as they shouted out the price of dried and fresh water fish, coconuts and sea fish. Barefoot children were frolicking on swings tied between tall swaying palms. So dear student, this is the appearance of marketplace, that in colored saris fisherwomen, those have baskets on their head, and the baskets were full of dried fish, freshwater fish, coconuts and sea fish, and the women were shouting about the price of their selling articles, those they have on their head to sell. And there were some children, those were barefoot, those were without footwear, and they were happily swinging, and the swings were tied between tall shaking palms. Now next paragraph I am going to read. The backwaters are so crowded today. Dear student, the embankment are so crowded. The bank of the rivers, the canals were so crowded, exclaimed Sukumaran. Everyone came for the races, because everyone were there to watch the race or to participate in the race. Now the next line. When the crowd began to thin out, when the crowd began to go toward the appointed place, which boat do you think will win tomorrow? Shouted Sukumaran, turning his head back to where Kutan sat in the rear of the boat. So dear student, Kutan was sitting the back side of his boat, and Sukumaran shouted and asked him. He turned his head back toward Kutan and asked him and shouted and asked him that which boat do you think will win tomorrow? Then also he gave two options, Karichal 1 or Karichal 2. Okay. Then Kutan replied confidently that Karichal 1 will win the trophy. And next part. Is it true, Kutan? The whole village is saying that Karur Neelkantha Pillai is going to sell one of his two boats? So Kumaran asked. And then Sukumaran asked to Kutan that is it true? The whole village were talking that Karur Nilkanth Pillai was going to sell one of his two boats. Karur Nilkanth Pillai had two boats, Karichal 1 and Karichal 2. So he asked that is this true that he is going to sell one of his boat? Yes, it's true. Kuthan sighed. He can't afford to keep both the Karichals anymore. So he said that whichever one loses in the race tomorrow will be sold. So, dear student, in this paragraph, you can understand that Kuttan sighed and replied it was true because he could not able to afford the both Karchals anymore. So he had decided that whichever one, Karichal 1 or Karichal 2, will lose the race, that one he will sell. But your father is a wonderful captain of Karichal 1, protested Sukumaran, quite agitated. Sukumaran became quite excited and in tried to protest and said that your father, who is a wonderful captain of Karichal 1, so he will sell the boat perfectly and that will win. Yes, but so is Keswan's father, who is the captain of Karichal 2, Kuttan replied. Okay, then Kuttan replied to Sukumaran that like his father, Keswan's father is also a perfect captain of the Karichal 2. They turned into a side canal where there was no traffic on the waters at all. So they turned their boat into a side canal where there was no traffic, no people was there. That was empty, without traffic. The banks were right of colorful flowers. That canal was very beautiful. The banks were full of colorful flowers. The boys turned into another canal and the scenery changed. So then the boys were going through the canals by the boat and they turned their boat into another canal and the scenery had been changed. The sun was setting on the backwaters, and in that canal, the sun was sitting on the backwaters. The clouds began to change from white to saffron. So, when the sun is going to set, the clouds usually change their color. So the clouds began to change from white to saffron color, then a fiery red. Then after some time, the clouds became dark red, then changed into pink. Slowly it became shadowy on the canal, and when the sun set, it became shadowy. And then next paragraph, Sukumaran looked around apprehensively. So Sukumaran looked around in worry. Why? Because they haven't been there before. We won't get lost. They thought that they got lost. Will we? Sukumaran asked to Kutan. I think it's time we got back. And also he suggested him that they should go back. Don't worry, I know this canal very well, replied Kutan. Then Kutan replied to Sukumaran not to worry. He knew about that canal very well. The dugout turned a corner and Sukumaran gave a guess of ah. Then what happened? The dugout, that boat, stopped or aside a corner, and then Sukumaran gave a gasp of fear. In the fighting twilight, they could see the two boats standing side by side at the bank. And that was a time of twilight. The light was dim, fading, and they could able to see two boats standing side by side at the bank. There they are, Karichal 1 and Karichal 2, Kutan announced proudly. And then Kutan informed about both boats proudly that they were Karichal 1 and Karichal 2. I helped Achan to decorate Karichal 1 for tomorrow. Here Achan word means father. So he announced that he will help his father to decorate the boat for tomorrow, because these two boats were going to participate in the race. They look identical, don't they? Sukumaran observed. Sukumaran observed that the both boats, Karichal 1 and Karichal 2, both were looking same without any difference. Yes, except for the first and second. Kutan said. Kutan said only the name Karichal 1 and Karichal 2nd or Karichal 2, that is only different. Otherwise everything is same for both boats. The boys sat silent for a moment in the shadows of the bank. Then they both boys sat silently in the shadows of the bank for some time. The two boats were a beautiful sight, and they both were sitting at the bank of that canal and watching toward the beautiful sight. And the beautiful sight was the two boats, Karichal 1 and Karichal 2. They were decorated with multicolored silk parasols, and the both boats were decorated with multicolored large umbrellas and sterns of sorry they both were colored with large number of umbrellas and gold tassels. Tassels means bunch. And Sukumaran looked at the colorful spirals curved on the bows and sterns of the two churnals. Sukumaran was looking about colorful spirals that were curved on the bows and stern of the two churnals. Churnals means boats with circular ends that you can see in Kerala, with awe and admiration, and their turning was awe and honored. He was about to ask another question when they suddenly heard a loud hammering. Then Sukumaran was about to ask one more question to Kutan, but suddenly they heard a loud hammering. The boys froze. They both were freeze at their place, hardly daring to breathe. They scared, and they were hardly taking their breath. The hammering was coming from Karichal 1. and the sound of hammering was coming from the boat Karichal 1. Dear student, in this video the explanation is only this much, and the rest of the story will be explained in my another video. I hope you are enjoying this story. Thank you very much for watching the story.